Hello, listeners. Hi, my name is Madhavi, and I'm so happy to have you on UppTalk. You have come to the right place if you want to learn about IT and do really cool things with your hands. We are not just another IT company when I say UppTalk. Think of us as your learning partner dedicated to helping you reach your full potential. We have top notch hands on courses to help you build your business, whether you're new to technology or want to move up in your current job. Let's look around this as our first step towards learning.
Let's get on to today's topic that we have today. Today we are going to be seeing something what is very important. It is used a lot in the real world as well. We call it as EBs. EIB, that is Enterprise Interface Builder. Enterprise Interface Builder, or in jargon that we use for that is called as EIBs. And this is a very important tool which is used in Workday. And the main purpose of EIBs is to transfer data from or to Workday, which means I can build an inbound data interface which is going to get the data into the Workday system, or it can be used to extract data out of the Workday platform. Out of the Workday platform. What effectively it means is, for example, I need to create, say, MS, I need to create positions. Say, I want to create 1,000 positions. For example, I need to create thousands of positions. What I would use the EIB tool. We will deal about the UI part a little later, but I will create a EIB to create a position. I can create 1,000 positions in just a flash. Instead of going through the entire UI, creating it one by one. Instead, I would create it all MMS just by the click. Alright, alright. That is what a typical EIB, which is an inbound EIB, is going to be. An outbound EIB is the reverse is to typically extract the data out of my Workday system and share it across in a specific format with an external vendor post transformation. Something like a payroll vendor, absence vendor, time tracking vendor, or any other benefits vendor, something like an insurance or a medical policy or other relevant details. I can share the data from Workday to an external vendor that we call it as outbound EIB. The data is going out of Workday system. We call that as outbound, whereas the data which is going to come into the Workday platform is called as an inbound EIB. Make sense clear on what exactly an outbound EIB and an inbound EIB is with the example that we've just given. Any questions? Or if I have to give it an inbound EIB, probably for those who are from a PeopleSoft background, your EIB is nothing but your version of component interfaces. It's precisely the same. All right. Those who are from a PeopleSoft background, I think for Oracle HCM and Suite or from SuccessFactors also, we have specific inbound and outbound interfaces. The same one is what we have in Workday terminology. We call it as EBs. And again, EBs are very simple. We can have them as an Excel template, which means if I want to load their data into my Workday system, the UI is mostly nothing but an Excel format only. It's only an Excel. Instead of filling out the data manually, say, for example, if I want to create a position, what I would do is I would go to the position creation task and then I will fill out all of these details regarding my support, regarding all the other details. I have to fill out all of this and then hit, and then it's going to go across certain processes and everything. Do you expect me to be doing this 1,000 times to create 1,000 positions? Maybe not. Rather, I would use an EIB to create 1,000 positions. I would submit the values using an EIB template, which is more of an Excel format, which is very easy for your HR teams to operate. And all that needs to be done is simply push it, and then the system is going to do the rest of its job. That is number one. That is number one. Number two, you may ask me a question. When I go and create a position, what happens in the back end? People may ask me what actually happens in the back end is your create position. Business process is going to get triggered. Am I right? Guys, are you there? Because I thought for a second that I lost you guys. Only thing is, you may ask me what exactly happens to the business process. The business process is all. Let me just pick any normal business. Let me take create position BK sales. I'm not able to find the default definition because you have like thousands of definitions. Ignore the error in this business process. When I create a position, the create position business process also gets triggered. When I do it manually via the UI, this gets triggered. But when I do it with EIBs also, the business process does get triggered. Alright? But there are certain steps which cannot be triggered. Say, for example, in this particular business process, there are certain steps like a document generation, like calling another integration, which is integration in the sense from this business process. I'm going to trigger another integration to a third party or any other report generation. Those steps alone will not be triggered. I will repeat when I use a bus when I use an EIB. It operates in the same manner as I do it in a UI when I do it manually, except that I use it for a bulk loading option. I use it for a bulk loading option when I want to load hundreds and thousands of same positions or hires, terminations, changed job, etc. But the same business process will get triggered. But what we do is some of these steps by default in the business process will not get triggered. Approvals will get triggered, but report generation, document generation, and as third-party integration, say from this position interface position business process, if I am going to be sending across an integration to a third-party vendor to send this data, that will not get triggered. That will not get triggered. All right. What we usually do is whenever we know that for a specific business process we are going to have an EIB load. We usually create a separate business process definition only for the EIB load. Only for the EIB load, we will create a specific business process which is going to take care only of the EIB integration. And that is usually going to have only the initiate step. It's not going to have any of the other steps unless it is mandatory. Something like a change or assignment is mandatory. Rest of them is never ever mandatory. Clear on this? For a higher business process, there are two mandatory steps. One is going to be a change or assignment. And then next, the mandatory thing for your hire is going to be one is your change or assignment. And another is your personal information. These are mandatory ones. But for your normal position, also I need change or assignment. And in my EIB definition on of my business process, I will only have the mandatory steps, which will also be automatically completed. We will see that next also. Am I making sense? I cleared. We are not going to use this definition. We will create a separate definition which is going to be used only for EIBs. Only for EIBs or external loads. Clear on this? I will not have them in the C. Now let me show you. I will show that that makes it sense. And now I'm going to copy this business process definition over here. And I'm going to say it is going to be effective 01 row 1 119 100. And instead of copy workflow to business object, I will say rule-based definition. I will say REN external load. Alright. Alright. I will. They seem to have done a little bit of a mockery because this definition was not available at 21, 19, 100. I cannot create that one over there. That is why. I'm just putting it just a week prior. Alright. My definition will look something like I would remove all of these. I'm going to do this. Possibly I'll have only the pay group assignment. Pay group assignment and change job costing allocation is not required. Review is not required. Approval. I do not want to have an approval. I do not want to have an approval. I'll tell you also, if you want, I would rather say I would even remove these two. If it does not throw me an error, let's say if it's going to throw an error, I'll put it like test for EIB loads. That's it. That's it. This is how it's going to look. It's going to be more like a bare bones. It's going to be more a bare bones. It's not a business process. It's going to be a bare bone implementation or a bare bone business process and definition. All right. And one thing I think I taught you about the rule-based definitions as well. Right? Did I teach you about rule-based definitions or not? You know about how to create. I'm sure you know how to create it for a specific business object. But did I, guys? Did you? Did I teach you all about how to create a rule-based definition and how to trigger them? This particular business process, you know, in your normal business process that we have. I'm just parking EIB just for a quick 2 minutes. Sorry on that. I think I should have taught you guys this earlier. I have it over here. Let's say create position. This business process has been created for a business object, which is possibly a supervisory organization called CR people team. Alright. Whereas this definition I created right now is called as a rule-based BP definition. There are two types of business processes which can be created, one for a business object. If you see over here, if I go and copy this definition, I say copy or link the definition, I will get two definite options over here. One is the workflow. One is copy definition to a business object, which means you are going to copy it to a support or you leave the link, or I will do is, what I will do is I will create a rule-based workflow definition name, which means this workflow definition to business object is automatically going to be triggered for a specific business object, which could possibly be my location company call center or a supervisory organization. Whereas I can also create a rule-based definition which can be triggered based on a rule. And where I'll be giving this rule is I go to any business process definition of create position business process and I come to rule based business process configuration. Rule-based business process configuration. All right, and here I will enter a new rule over here. I will see if I can have an external right. I think that is already available over here. All right, please pay close attention to this particular rule. This is already a delivered rule which is available. This rule definition is going to say external load is equal to Y for our ape. It is precisely an external load, which means I'm not going to use the way to do it, whereas I'm going to load it via an external IB interface. I'm given the external load field over here equal to Y. If external load equal to Y, then I'm going to choose an appropriate rule-based definition over here. For all external load-based rule, this is the business process rule-based business process definition which is going to be triggered. And again, you may ask me a question. I have one for company cost center or supervisory organization. I may have one for rule-based as well. Which one will take precedence? The one that will take precedence is always the one created for the specific company, cost center location, or your supervisory organization. For example, I have one ape, say, which is created 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. I have one created for rule based, another for, sorry, I think I made a mistake over there. It's not the one that is going to be created for that. It is going to take precedence of the rule base, not the one that we created for that specific object. The first one that it's going to check is, do I have one for a rule based? If I have one for a rule based, then it is going to trigger this. If not, then it will go and pick the business process which is created for that particular business object, I'll show you that in a better way. Also, I go to my support called Aryan. And now for this, let me go across to business process definitions for this particular B, for that supervisory organization. All right, let me go to position. All right, I have one definition. I do not have any position, any create position, business process created for this. For this particular test, NBP1 supervisory organization, the default one, which is going to be here, is going to be the default definition, which is already created. And if I try to load it via an EIB, which is an external load, the definition which is going to be triggered is going to be a create position array and external load, which I have created. Got it? Make sense clear on this far? And that is the way I would create a rule-based definition. We have like a rule-based definition. And also one which is created for the business object. All right, for the business object, the one which is going to be triggered first is going to be your rule-based. Then your business object level is going to get triggered in your rule-based. Clear on this far? Any questions here on how to create rule-based definition? Similarly, I can have any kind of rule-based business object. Say I'm going to have like club multiple definitions as one say for the entire North American region. I want to use only one at create position, business process definition, and not everything else. I would create one rule over here and say if the location for my hire is going to be North American region, then I would create one definition for the entire North America. Clear any questions? Hello, clear on this? All right. Let's move on to IBs. Like I said, for EIBs alone, what I have done over here is I have created a new business process definition, which is a very, very lean business process over here. It has only initiate because in my IB business process, whatever IB business process that I am going to load, it will contain only very, very few steps. It's not going to contain a whole lot of steps. Alright, it's going to contain only very few steps. I make it as lean as possible. And this is going to be extensively used only when I want to load multiple rows of data at a single point of a time. I'm going to be clear, got it right. There are three things which you need to completely understand. One is going to be your, if I'm going to put it like I said, EIB is going to be like, it's a very, very simple integration to load data into Workday or extract data out of Workday. Loading data into Workday. Example is if I want to book, load any kind of positions, hires, terminations, change jobs, for example. Say if I have like multiple employees for whom I want to initiate a promotion, change of location, transfer, say I want to do it in mass, I use an IB. For example, you want to load a compensation pay change as a part of your probably your compensation review cycle, which could happen towards the year end. If you want to load multiple low rows of data or you want to load hundreds and thousands of employees, IBE is a one-stop shop for that particular use. All right, and it's very easy. And again, if I want to get data out of workplace system and send it across to another third-party vendor, I can use outbound IBs and also the methodology for that. Outbound is going to be very simple. First, I need to extract the data, which is get data. And the next one is going to be your transformation of your data. And again, this third one is going to be your delivering the data protocol, which is more like your SIMP encryption and all of that. And again, why I emphasized on get data, guys, does it ring any bells as to where we have possibly seen get data? Do you remember where we saw get data and what was the other one that you saw there in get data? What was the other one? You had something else supplementing get data as well in the security, which I told. I will deal with it when we get into IBs and everything. What was the other terminology that we saw? When you get something, what do? The complement of that. Get data is to get data from Workday. Put is to put data into Workday. Alright, get is going to be for an outbound interface. Now, if I want to tie it down to your domain security policy level for that particular domain, for example, If I take position, if you have access to that particular position, domain, and the appropriate fields, and also the appropriate page and everything else, then you will be able to get data accordingly, extract data accordingly. And if you want to perform an inbound interface for the same domain, you may want to have what is called as put data permission. Makes sense for you guys? And clear on this, where this actually boils down into clear. Where does this position or where does this get? And see here org design. Let me go to org. Design create position provides access to. This is org studio. Let's not get into org studio. That's a different one setup position. What is this? This is access to set of information. This should be it. See here domain access to set up information about positions, including work type, jobs, and positions. This is the domain. This is actually the master domain. It's going to have a lot of child policies as well. If I come over to all right, let me get pick something else. Let me go into something more of a child domain, something. All right, see here a get and put. Now does it ring bells for you? Got. For this particular domain, check policy for the actions. If you see certain actions like proposed job, we will see this in the template. If you have access to your get and your put operations, you will be able to get data in that particular business object or your position in more clear terms. That is number one. Number two, as far as security is concerned, the point when I'm saying that it is similar to my business process, just that it is going to be a little different. I'm obviously going to have policies, that is, business process security levels as well. Remember initiating action, create position web service. This, if you see initiating action, create position. This is more at the while level when you go directly to the task. That is what this is, whereas when I load it via an EIB, these are the security groups who can load it via EIB. For every business process which has an appropriate EIB definition, the initiating action will always be probably create position or your create jobs, create a hire somebody, terminate somebody in brackets, web service. Only these security groups will be able to create a position via EIBs. The security to actually load the EIBs is coming via this particular web service. Initiating action in your BP security policy, whereas the data is going to be coming from the appropriate domain, get and put actions. Clear on this? Far clear? Any questions? Your team. The get and the put permissions at a domain level are going to control the precisely. They are going to precisely control the data that is going to be got or it's going to be extracted or it is going to be put in the workplace system, whereas the actions which are there, which is like initiating a business process, is driven by the same BP security policy but only differences. Instead of initiating action, create position only. It is going to be like create position within braces web service because this is definitely going to be an API call which is going to be initiated. Clear on this? Only those folks who have the access for the create position web service action will be able to run an EIB. The rest of the folks will not be able to run an EIB. Clear on this? Funder, any questions? Your team. Is this clear at a high level overview? Is this clear in terms of what is the security? Alright, perfect, alright. Like I said for any outbound IBs, there are like 3 steps. One is your get data. We've seen the permissions. It's going to come from your domain security policies for the field level and for you to initiate the EIB. That is going to come from your business process web service, initiating action stage, right? That's where it is coming from. Clear on this? Clear on the purpose and where the data and also the security, everything is coming in, because that is something which you might be prompted in your interviews as well. Where is the permission coming for EIBs? One is going to be your get input data in your domain security policies. And the next one is going to be in your business process web service initiating action. All right, that's number 1 next. First, when do you want to consider EIB as a right tool? One is like, can I have a transformation done? This is more for an outbound EIB. For an outbound EIB, when should I consider this as a right tool? Which is like I want to have one-stop shop for all of my outbound interfaces and I want to transform the data and also share this across with my third-party vendor, including transformation. If I can do it in a single step, I might use an outbound EIB. That is number 1. Second, if I want to have any kind of a transformation, typically if I want to have some transformation of my data, the other purpose is like the entire transformation of my data can be managed in a single shot, which means a transformation of a data, which means like, see, I'm going to extract, say, I need to send across a data to my payroll vendor. I need to send the data. I need to first extract the payroll information. Say, I need to send the data across to an app payroll vendor. What I would rather do is I would first extract the data from my workplace system, make some transformations. Transformations is like whatever data I have got, should I clean up the data, ensure that I do not send any kind of personal information. What I might do is I might send only the employed information, old vendor, and apart from that, I might also do some other transformations as well, some basic level checks, calculations, checks and balances, and whatever I want to do, I will do it. All of this, I can do it in my external EIB load. Alright, and again security setups. We will see that up. Alright, that's number 1. Second, as far as your security for your integration or your outbound integration is concerned, I do not want to go more into detail in the technical stuff for now, since we are going to be dealing more about the inbound integrations. Remember only a couple of things over here in this. When I see the demo, when I show you the demo, you will understand it a little bit better. But what I would rather say is we have to have first the permission to the appropriate domains. The domains need to have the access. Like I said, put get access, and obviously you're going to have the view permissions as well. That is number 1 that you need to have. Ignore the second part for the I link, the ISO to IBS and the report, because this is more for the outbound integrations where you can transform the data and everything. But I do not want to deep dive into it for now. I'm just going to be only teaching you inbound because Outbound is very, very technical, and I don't want to get to that because there is some studio integrations, much of stuff. We'll concentrate on inbound only for now, which means you need to only remember you need to have the get access to the data. That is number one. And the second thing that you need to have is your web service initiating action for that particular business process, and you're good with it. All right, that is the only thing that you need to have as far as an inbound IB is concerned. And outbound IBs are going to be more used for extracting information from the Workday system. Or you want to attach it back to the tenant for further use references. Or if you want to transform it, say for example, I'm going to get the data transform it in some manner or the other. For example, I might get the raw payroll data, send it across to my payroll vendor, and post the payroll calculations. The payroll calculations is going to be like I'm going to get only the TAT information from my workplace system. Then I'm going to send it across to my payroll vendor, be it a Ceridian or an app or any vendor, for example, then get the data back as your earnings deductions, tax deductions, etc., and then push it back into my Workday system. This is a typical example, an end-to-end example for an EIB. All right, let's more go into the inbound IB part because that is more what I want to focus about, not the external or the outbound IBs. Inbound IBs, what I'm going to be possibly doing is first from my external system, I'm going to get the data, and if I want to transform it, since the E in this case is going to be Excel, I can easily do my transformation the way I want to do it. Next, I'm going to load it or deliver it into my, we can have other formats as well, but the common one is Excel. We'll see that next as well when we go into the short demo. All right, all that we. Let's go to that. And then simple thing, what we do is we create an EIB and then we load the data after transforming it or getting it from my third-party vendor and then push it into my Workday system. All right, let's see an example that will make it a lot more clear to most of your questions that you have. In order to create an IB, what I do is I go to the task and I say create IB, create IB. I'm going to be using the create positions task. I'm going to put it like Arian, which is always my naming convention. I'm going to say create inbound. Always mention whether it's an inbound or an ABE, inbound or an outbound ABE. I would rather put it as create position inbound ABE. Create position as the ABE that I'm going to use. I'm going to say inbound ABE and I'm going to say inbound over here. I'm not creating an outbound one. All bond is X to extract data from Workday and then push it to a third-party vendor. Inbound is to get data into the Workday system or put data into Workday. Now I'm going to say, next it's going to open this particular screen over here and in comments. If I want to say test IB, I will say it as test ABE over here. I'll go to next retrieval method. See here, it is like I can have multiple ways in which I can do it. I would choose attach file at launch, but in a real world, any of these could be used. FP is via a secure file transfer protocol. If I already have it configured and if my server has been whitelisted and all that is done, I can use an PIF. Or I can use a Google Drive if I have the access to it, or a all or an SAFP or any other file retrieval mechanism that I want to do. I can use any of them, whatever I want to do. But now I am using attach file at launch. Alright, you can do it also. If you want to do it now, you can do it as well. I do not want to restrict it to something. If I want to restrict it to only some instances, I can do it over here. Next, data format file type. I'm choosing only a spreadsheet template over here. I do not want to choose custom spreadsheet, but I would prefer a web service spreadsheet template which is similar to what we have web service operation here. Enter the business process name which is create position. See here, create position web service. Use this particular one. This is exactly the same that you gave in your business process initiating action. It is exactly the same that you have over here as well. Whatever permissions are secured over here, only those folks will be able to run this. And again, here you see a long list of people who can run this. But in a real world, this particular create permission, create position web service is restricted only to some of the admin level groups, not to everybody. Only to certain admin level groups can run IBs. Not everybody can run an IBs. Only very few cherry-picked people can run an IBs. Not everybody. Not every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to be able to run an IBs process. Alright, I will hit the next one, a transformation type. I'm not going to choose anything. It's going to be a template model, only all of these options which come from next onwards. I would rather go next. That is nothing much that I want to create because all of these are pre-loaded over here. Alright, usually the only thing while creating the IB that we need to concentrate upon is one is your name and another, the most important, is going to be your web service operation. Rest of them, you can just have the default options which are going to be directly loaded. Only thing that you need to put over here is your web service operations, and then you can hit next, and then you can hit next, and it should be fairly straightforward. We do not have anything over here. This is all. Delivery method is going to be your web service operation, and since no other delivery mechanism is actually configured, let's go to next and then create and submit review and then submit. Everything is done. All right, clear on this. Now I have my first inbound app integration system created, which is called as run create position inbound app. And one small tip for you, this is an integration system which is created, but still it's in app. But if I want to view this, I can directly go and pick this, or I can use int.cis. That's the prefix. That is the prefix. Int is the prefix because this is an integration system. Integration system is just a process. It means a process, and if I say the prefix as int ys, my I process is going to be coming. And that is a prefix that I use for my A process. Clear on this. Any questions before we jump into the next? And again, you can see the configuration. Whatever I have done over here, the create position web surveys, all that is available under the travel method is going to be file at launch. Attach file at launch, or if I want to drive it from my CFP or something, you have to configure your CFP, provide all the details, and then have it whitelisted and all that. And securities, the same security groups. Integration system, security groups which are going to be linked is all available over here. That is number 2. Second, now I've created my definition. Like I said, this is an Excel-based template. And how do I go to that? I go to this integration system, which is nothing but UIB. Go to the related actions at the bottom. I see an option over here which is called as template model. I click on generate spreadsheet template, and here if I want to choose the option, I can either have it as an XML or an XLAX. I choose XLAX, which is nothing but your Excel format. If you guys are familiar with XML, you can do with XML also, because XML is more for other languages. Because if I'm going to get the same file from another third party or a Java-based application, I may go for an XML because all your JISPs and everything, it's easy for me to generate it using an XML rather than XLEX format. If it's going to be VAR and JAS for other things, I might use XML, but since here I'm going to have an Excel formatting, I will go to give it as XLEX. Then I'm going to say confirm, just a confirmation checkbox, and I click submit. Alright. Once I do it, if you see here view background process, and I have several tabs over here similar to the process tabs that you saw, hit refresh. This is going to give me the completion percentage of my creation of my generation of my spreadsheet template process. It's going to run, and once it is completed, it is going to provide my output files. I just have to go to my output files and then click on create position XLSX, and this particular version it shows here, create position underscore v42.0, which is nothing but the version of this particular IB. This particular IB or web service operation will have versions which are delivered by Workday from time to time, and the current version happens to be 42, which means that I like 41 versions prior, and based on the latest changes, 42 is the latest version. Probably 6 months down the line, Workday may introduce a new version called S43. Alright, from time to time, Workday releases new versions of this. You just have to be mindful about it as well. Of course, when you load this template, you may get an error saying that you are using an obsolete version. Please use the latest version. That is always there, and it's an option. Alright? Now what I do is, I click on this particular file, and it is going to download in my local desktop, and then I open it over here. It is very, very simple. Alright, it's a very fairly straightforward and a simple template. Let me explain how exactly this works. The first one I have like multiple business process or sub-business process, where this is all coming down to is very simply put, I say create position. I go to this particular task, and the supervisory organization is just defaulting. Just ignore that for now. And if I see over here all of these options, your supervisor position, title, number of positions, availability date, everything is exactly what is available over here as well, available here as well. And all that you need to do is only those which are marked as required are the mandatory fields. Rest of them are not mandatory fields. Only those which are marked as mandatory fields. You need to have them filled. Rest of them ignore it. If it is marked as optional, it is up to you to whether you want to provide a value to it or not. For example, your position id, which is self-generated, is an optional field. It is not mandatory for you to provide a value for the position id. If you do not provide it, it's going to be automatically picking it up, but it's good to have if you want it. And again, your position title is a mandatory field here. If I go over here, this is your job posting title. This is your job posting title. This is your job posting title. This is going to be definitely something required, but it's mentioned over here as optional. Ignore it. What I would rather do is I would go by this screen over here, and whichever fields are marked as mandatory, I would go and fill all these fields in all the 5 tabs that I have over here. All the 5 tabs I have over here is nothing but an Excel version of all these fields that you may have to fill it in a real world in the E, but only difference being all of this is an entirely all of this is for one row, whereas in an Excel, up to the Excel's limit of 1,000,000 rows, I can load how many ever. I can load how many ever rows of data that I want. I can load up to 1,000,000 positions in a single batch processing. In a single batch processing, I can run up to 1,000,000 rows, which is of course the limit of my Excel. Clear on this far? What exactly happens? It is exactly the same. Some of you who are from a PeopleSoft background, whatever you did in Excel to SI, this is exactly the same. No difference of whatsoever between an Excel to CI in your PeopleSoft versus an EIB in Workday. It's exactly the same. Makes sense to all of you and the rest of the folks. If I want to load bulk data, I will go ahead and use this. Or for example, for some of the folks from my own practical experience, people are not really comfortable because who are traditionally from an hard background, they prefer an Excel based loading because that is the way they are used to maintaining their data. What they would do is they would maintain all their data in Excel and they prefer to load this rather than coming on to the screen loading everything. They generally do not prefer this. Some are folks do not prefer. This is from my own personal experience. No how, no offense, but some hers really do prefer the Excel way of working rather than the system way of working. For them, this is an easier to use format. Easier to use format when I compare with my irrelevant setup. Clear on this, guys? Any questions? I do not have a template. What I will do is I will try to create a new template today. I have to fill out all of these details. It's going to obviously take some time, but I will just show you how to do it and then I will share the template across with you by the end of today and then you can load it across. But I will show you how to load it actually. This is the security. All right, see here, this is the EIB definition that I have created and the way I would load this. This is not mine. Let me go to my definition over here, create position, inbound EIB. In order to load my EIB, I go to my view integration system or INSYS and then I to my integration definition and then I go to related actions, integration system, integration, not integration system. And then I say log. If you see, I have given the value here as retrieval method over here on the left side. I'm just highlighting it from the mouse attach file at launch. We will see that next. Now I'm going to do is run frequency. And if I want to run this like other, I think it was Kalyani or Krishnamini, either of you were asking how do I schedule it. This is the way I can schedule it. If I want to schedule this to be run at a periodic interval, I can do it as well, similar to how we saw for report scheduling the same option. Next I hit. And then over here, create position web service attachment. I will give the value here a specify value. I will choose a value over here as create integration attachment, and then over here I will just load my file. I'm just trying to create a file over here. I just need some time to create all those values. I will click and attach it over here. All right. And this is an empty template. I'm not going to load anything, and once I load it over here, if I want to mention other options over here, I can do it. For example, if I'm trying to load, say 10,000 rows and 10,000 rows, how this will work in a real world is out of the 10,000 rows. If 10 rows have errors, it is not that out of the 10,000 rows, the 10 rows have errored out. The process will fail for the rest of them. It does not work in that way. It will ideally work for all the 9990 rows. Only those 10 will error out. The rest of the 10 which have errored out due to some data issues, you can reload the template with the correct data representation values and reload them. That is going to help it all, right? I repeat, if I have 10 rows erroring out in my 10,000 row data set, I can ensure, or the Workday does ensure, that the rest of the 9990 rows successfully load and only 10 rows will error out, which I can load it back again in my second run. That is number one option. Second, if out of those 10,000s and rows, I know that 1000 is going to be loading as an error, I can set a cutoff limit where I'm going to say if it hits a cutoff limit of say 50 rows, then the process will automatically halt. If it has reached a threshold error value of 50 rows, then it will error out. That is number one. Alright, I can set up this particular value as my error threshold limit. Next option I have over here is validate only load, which means there are like two modes over here. One, I want to only validate my Excel template, but I do not want to load it at first because some of the users first run time when they load it, that they will load it only as a validate. If I check this box, it means it is going to only validate but not load. Validate for any errors which are there in my load. Oh, right, it is not going to have any kind of a loading done. The data is not going to hit the database. It is only going to validate for errors and checks. That's all it's going to. That's what we mean as a validate only mode. If I'm going to check this box, it's going to only validate. That is what. Next, add errors to the attachment. Every time I load it, this particular attachment is going to come out with all the values which have errored out, and the value error results will also be loaded in this attachment file that you will see as a part of the output. That is what this option is going to be clear on this thus far. Clear on this. What I will do is I just need something like half an hour to load. This is around 10 or 15 rows. I will load this and I will share the template and also the details of this particular integration process in probably half an hour's time or 1 hour maximum. You can check it up as well. Clear on this far. But this is the mechanism how you would load an inbound process. Clear on this as far? Any questions, team? When I'm going to transform my legacy data from my legacy ERT system like JD AdWords or SuccessFactor, PeopleSoft, Oracle, HCM Suite, whichever it is, onto Workday, then I would use this particular EIB tool. And one more important information to you when we dealt with business processes. Remember, I told you when you create a business process, please ensure that the performance is within limits. All right, it should be within limits because when I load hundreds and thousands of rows of data, my business process should be able to handle it. Otherwise, it's going to go for a toss. It's going to go for a toss. Clear on this? Any questions, team? Because it will go for a toss if I'm going to have much of information and much of processes in between it and much of integrations and everything. Imagine running 100,000 rows of data if you're going to load it in one shot. If my business process is going to be all crap, then it's going to take several days. It's going to take several days because it's going to have much of transformation. That's why in my external load definition of my business process, I try to keep it as lean as possible. And again, my IBs are going to be loaded only by very, very cherry picked users, which could be at an admin level people only. Not every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to have access to load my IBs. Only cherry-picked admin or higher-level users are going to have access to running ABEs. Not everybody is going to have access to it. If that makes sense to you as well, let me open my higher BP definition. It'll make sense for you. I'm opening higher RAN. Alright, in this higher BP definition, ignore the error. What is the error that? In my higher BP step or higher BP that I have, if I'm going to transform this to an APE, I've added all the mandatory ones. The mandatory ones, like I said earlier, work, change your assignment, pay group assignment, and create Workday account. These are the mandatory 3 steps which are required. If I want to have onboarding, I can have it for onboarding. Also, if I want to have onboarding, I can have onboarding. Otherwise, it's for me to skip onboarding as well, but mandatory. I need to have change your design, which is going to happen by default, and I will have in my higher ABE template. I will have a change or assignment template. I will have a template for assign P group as well, just like what you have over here. I will have an assigned pay group as well. Change your assignment will also be available. Workday account will automatically be created because this is a Workday service. It'll automatically run and create my Workday account automatically. All these will be there. I will keep it to bare bones of what is required. The rest of them I can ignore. Probably I will ignore approvals. If I do not want to have approvals, I can ignore approvals. Maybe onboarding as well if I do not want to have onboarding. For all those people whom I'm going to load, because this is more used on an as and when basis. Say, if I'm going to pull the data from my legacy, it is to load all my legacy employees who would have been hired some 10 years in the past as well. For them, I need not initiate onboarding again, right? I wouldn't need them. I would need only org assignment, assign pay groups, and create Workday account. That should going to suffer. That is going to suffice. I may not need approvals. I may not need onboarding for them. I will keep only these 3 mandatory. Your steps A1 at 2 B4 are going to be knocked out before we wind up for the day because I will just load this template. Just give me an hour or I'll finish my other stuff and then I'll get back the best November with me. Back for this. Please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more information, contact us sales@therightuptalk.com.